Okay, welcome back to the next panel where we'll be looking at specific examples from fragile states, successes and experiences, that the speakers will share with us. So we have 4 speakers at the next panel, so it's a fairly tight agenda that we have. So without any further ado, I will invite our first speaker, Mr. Bing Zhao, who is the P4P Director and Global Coordinator of World Food Program. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aibu. And I'm very pleased to be at this gender-balanced panel. And of course, I wish to thank the organizer, the CTA, the ACP, as well as the European Commission for inviting me to attend this very interesting briefing and bringing together also looking at a very wide range of stakeholders. Very happy to be representing the World Food Program here. As most of you know that the World Food Program is best known for its humanitarian responses. It is actually the world's largest humanitarian agency, and every year actually we are assisting. For example, last year we have assisted more than 90 million hungry people in the world in over 80 countries. And we deliver the food needed to the emergencies in some of the places where we hear every day. But also we also work with communities and development partners, national governments, private sector, NGOs, to improve the nutrition outcome and then to build resilience when it comes to food systems, contributing to longer-term food security and sustainable development. And this is a great opportunity for us to share some of our programmatic initiatives, especially on the case of DRC, which is an emerging case. It's an evolving case in a little while. As Mr. Aibu has introduced, actually I am responsible of the Purchase for Progress, the P4P program. But nowadays, which has been actually an initiative aimed at linking smallholders to market. WFP's demand, very upfront, but also the demand from other public sector, including, for example, the government's grain reserve systems, school feeding programs, social protection network need, but also the private sector need. Responsible of this program, but also now we are working more towards embracing or combining WFP's other smallholder initiatives to engage ourselves in a so-called integrated programmatic approach to deliver more systemic impact on food systems, on making food systems more inclusive and more profitable and more resilient also for smallholders. And we also think that in doing humanitarian work, we realize that food is not only saving lives, it is also a good tool for development as well as for peace building. So it encouraged us to work with partners to help people, displaced people, refugees, to go back to their villages, to engage in productive activities, and to settle their disputes over resources, like the ones that our colleagues have mentioned just now about taking the herds to another country across border, creating tension, for example. And for example, we work very heavily with smallholders to strengthen their resilience, especially their resilience to shocks, to address the fragile situations, and improve their access to markets, enabling them to feed themselves, but also to feed their communities. Actually, under P4P, over 2 million smallholders have been helped in more than 60 countries. We bought $250 million of worth of food from smallholder farmers, mostly from through farmers' organizations and cooperatives. And this has actually proved to be a very effective way to encourage smallholders to engage in production, to increase, to invest in their agriculture production and livelihoods. We at WFP, we believe that a coherent approach, as I said, is an integrated and a coherent approach is required if we want to sustainably address the root causes of crisis. We often find ourselves going back to the same country, maybe even the same region of the same countries, to help the same people. So we say that this might not be the best way for us to invest all our efforts in. Of course, emergency response is definitely something that we prioritize. So putting people first, of course, is essential to achieve this zero hunger. It means that we will work with local communities and other partners to strengthen local institutions and structure, including their civil society and community-based organizations, and investing in their capacity, supporting their role as their first responders and collaborators of us. And we have a couple of good examples in some of the regions and countries where we are going to talk about today, including, for example, in South Sudan, we are providing life-saving emergencies, supplies, for example, food, but also other supplies. For example, we engage in food in return for work to help the smallholders to create productive assets like small irrigation facilities, little roads that connect them to the main road, and to provide also food for school meals, and to help women and also young children to improve their nutrition levels. And in the Sahel region, which you know that is facing a very serious humanitarian situation now, in 5 countries, Burkina Faso, Chad, Mali, Mauritania, and Niger, because of its very mixed combination of very negative factors, including climate change, including institutional livelihood contexts. We're facing a hunger there, a famine there. So we are helping to address this early onset of lean season, which means a large shortage of food for about close to 6 million people in that region this year. And coming to the case of DRC, which is a very, as I said, is an emerging good case that we think has demonstrated the power, the effectiveness of this integrated approach, but also collaborations among different actors, including the RBA, the Rome-based agencies. And yeah, bringing to perspective the situation we're facing. For example, currently in DRC, we are having more than 7 million people in need of food assistance. This is an increase of 30% as compared with last year. And of course, this hunger is largely caused by human factor. We all know that that country, resource rich, should have been able, to produce quite enough food for the whole population. And of course, we realize, to bring about this, to bring up this potential of production, longer-term interventions and longer-term support will be needed. So FAO, WFP, and IFA, the 3 Rome agencies, have launched a joint program to strengthen the resilience of the fragile state, especially the vulnerable populations and households. And we aimed at, of course, building inclusive and resilient food systems in the north and in the north and south Kivu province. So the smallholders' agricultural and financial capacities for sustainable production and market engagement will enable them to increase their incomes, to increase their production, and then to build resilient livelihoods. And of course, we're also working to support community-based organizations, where we say, women's structure, women's chapters of farmers organizations, farmers cooperatives. But of course, we realize that, farmers organizations, they're not the same. Their quality, which means the capacity of these farmers organizations or cooperatives, will be critical if we want to rely on them as partners to help smallholders. So that's why under P4P, we have also developed farmers organization assessment tools so that we understand, we can identify the right partners. And of course, based on which we can design trainings to help these farmers organizations to, capacitate themselves to be the viable partner that we expect them to be. So this comprehensive program was designed actually to combine rehabilitation of smallholder families' livelihoods with inclusive financing, market access, the peace building in fact also, specifically by combining WFP's two main smallholder-facing initiatives. That is what we call food assistance for asset. That's asset creation and P4P. In the short term, of course, how it works. How will it work? Well, it's with FFA, actually, the asset creation aimed at improving the food nutrition security of vulnerable households by providing immediate access to food. In exchange, of course, for public work kind of activities to contribute to the asset creation, as I mentioned just now. And then with P4P, designed and tailored to encourage smallholders and to help smallholders to link to public and private markets, including WFP's own market. WFP's own demand. And this stable demand will help farmers earn more, and then what is important, that they'll be encouraged to invest in their own production. But investment are also encouraged from other private sector and public sector actors. So because we are of the conviction that only by helping smallholders in the value chain, enabling them being real participant in the market, and they can be empowered and incentivized to really help create a food system that is sustainable and inclusive. And this, of course, this approach is, of course, serving a good end in strengthening the capacity of farmers' organizations, as we have, that has already been proved. And we're also facilitating through those farmers' organizations their access to seeds and tools, working with partners, especially on this aspect, relying on FAO, so that we are getting the production side covered. In parallel, of course, we are also focused on the rehabilitation and expansion of market-oriented rural infrastructure to create conducive and enabling environment for smallholders. So this program in DRC has been made possible through the very generous funding of three major donors: the Swedish government, the Germans, as well as the Canadian government. I think it's over the total of about $50 million maybe, as I recall, which is a very good support to us, to the RBAs, to implement such an integrated approach. In short, actually, we have learned in WFP, and we have learned good lessons and knowledge in how to deal, partly how to address these fragile situations, such as the ones in DRC. But of course, other countries of similar context, equally complex, will require the same kind of approach, but with different combination of initiatives and interventions. And of course, I hope that this will continue to yield knowledges and good cases so that we can share in the coming years at this forum, but also at a larger forums. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zhao, explaining WFP's integrated approach, looking at not only just emergency response, but also building resilience and facilitating access to markets, working with farmers' organizations, and also the partnership with the other UN agencies in working in this area. I'm sure there will be lots of interest during the discussion, so we'll come back to some of those points.